but we are in a crisis right now, and we need to help that also. Yes, John.
There are lower class schools and upper class schools in the same states. How are you going to compare the different schools, like how they perform on the tests? Like, there's different blocks. How do you compare that?
I understand. The states evaluate their own state as well. They hand the U.S. Department of Education will evaluate each state and their plan for each of their schools, and therefore you'll be able to determine how well they're doing, much like Race to the Top is doing. Yes, Mary.
With, how you said you would have the teachers be based off their students, do you realize that some students aren't very good with standardized testing, nor do they actually care about school?
Well, I never said that teachers would be based off their students. I said that the schools and local governments will determine how well the teachers are doing, much like the administration would, and their views on, or their ability to do well on tests, and even their plans to do better. That's how we would rate them. Yes, Julia?
How will you evaluate each teacher? Like, will you send someone, or?
Well, we leave the evaluation of each school up to the state, and the evaluation of each teacher, whether they're fired or not, comes down to the individual school. But the state will be overlooking to make sure that they are able to monitor that. Yes?
I have more of a clarification question. You said that schools that do better would get more funding. Can you clarify how the funding will be done, how that will be conducted?
Schools that are succeeding and have better plans, the U.S. Department of Education will not necessarily rate them on a scale of first, second, and third, much like Race to the Top is doing. More as they meet expectations, they will receive the funding. Yes.
Oftentimes, better areas that have more funding do better on tests. So how do you compensate for the fact that poor areas might not have as good of schools, they might not educate their children as well, so they would need the money?
Well, that's why we are, instead of basing it off of how well they're doing on tests, we will also use how well they improved within the past years and their recent plans. And if we get their plans, we can also see how much work they're putting into it, and if they are putting 100% into it, much like we want them to.
Thank you.
Yes?
And what will be done for the schools that aren't improving over the years?
They will not receive as much federal funding as most schools who are willing to improve. And it doesn't necessarily have to be completely up to the students. It can be the state plan on we plan on doing this to show that they are making an effort and they will want to change the education.
3 more questions.
There's Suraj.
When handing out the funds, if a school needs extra funds to meet expectations, if they aren't currently meeting those expectations, wouldn't that increase the divide between performing schools and underperforming schools?
Like I said earlier, it was based on plans as well. So we do plan, see how hard they're working. And if a school is in dire need, which the state would express and would have to present something to the federal government, then we will discuss that and see if they need further funding. Haley?
Do you have a stance on vouchers?
And by vouchers, you mean?
Like when a student wants to go from a public school to a privately run school, and the state gives them a voucher.
Okay, I understand. Yes, I do. I do believe in that.
So you're for that?
Yes.
Next question.
Mara.
According to your economic plan, you want to lower taxes. How would you compensate for giving more federal funding to schools that are doing better if you have less tax money to use?
Well, Obama already has $4.35 billion for education. I plan on cutting that by a few, and I plan on cutting that in order to use that money as other places, not having to raise as much money for education.
Okay.
Okay. Give him a hand.